The opening salvo from 10 Valkyrie warships lit up the darkness of space like a miniature sun. Hundreds of weapons fired simultaneously, sending waves of destructive energy toward the human vessel. Plasma torpedoes streaked through the void at near-light speed. Ion beams sliced through space invisible to the naked eye. Particle cannons discharged bursts of exotic matter that could tear through conventional armor. Missile batteries launched smart weapons that adjusted their flight paths to track moving targets. It was the kind of bombardment that could destroy a small city in seconds. The kind of assault that had shattered planetary defenses and broken entire fleets. The Indomitable's shields flared to brilliant life. Layers of gravitational force fields surrounded the human warship like invisible armor. The incoming weapons fire struck these fields and deflected away, sent spinning off into empty space. Plasma torpedoes exploded harmlessly hundreds of meters from the hull. Ion beams dispersed into harmless radiation. Particle cannon shots dissolved into quantum foam before reaching their target. On the Valkyrie flagship, Tactical Officer Krenva stared at her displays in disbelief. "Admiral, our weapons are having no effect. Their shields are absorbing everything. Power readings show their defensive systems are operating at only 15% capacity." Admiral Krentok refused to believe what he was seeing. "Impossible. Concentrate all fire on a single point. Overwhelm their shields with focused bombardment." The Valkyrie fleet adjusted its tactics, all 10 ships targeting the exact same section of the human warship's shields. The combined firepower increased dramatically, energy readings spiking to levels that would have destroyed any known vessel. The Indomitable's shields held firm. Power consumption increased to 22%. Captain Dai-hyun watched the tactical displays with calm focus. The alien weapons were powerful, certainly more advanced than anything humanity had possessed 50 years ago. But they were still conventional energy weapons, and the Indomitable's gravitational shielding had been designed specifically to counter such attacks. "Shields holding steady." "Captain," reported Chief Engineer Tae-sung from his station, "we can maintain this defensive posture for 17 hours at current consumption rates. Longer if we reduce non-essential systems." "That will not be necessary, Chief." Dae-hyun turned to his weapons officer. "Sang-hoon, return fire. Disable their propulsion systems, but do not destroy them. I want them alive to carry a message back to their leadership." Weapons Officer Sang-hoon entered the firing commands with steady hands. Target selection confirmed. Firing railguns. The Indomitable's primary weapons were railguns, electromagnetic accelerators that could launch solid metal projectiles at 5% of light speed. Unlike energy weapons, railgun rounds carried kinetic energy that could not be easily deflected. They were simple, brutal, and devastatingly effective. 3 railgun turrets fired simultaneously. The projectiles were small, only 30 centimeters long and 10 centimeters in diameter, but at the speed they were traveling, each round carried the kinetic energy of a tactical nuclear weapon. The Valkyrie destroyers never saw them coming. Their sensors detected the launch, but the projectiles were too small and too fast to track effectively. By the time the alien ships attempted evasive maneuvers, it was already too late. The first round struck the second destroyer's engine section. The ship's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, offered no resistance to solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The projectile punched through the engine housing like it was made of paper. The destroyer's main drive exploded in a cascade of secondary detonations. Emergency alarms shrieked across that ship's bridge as power failed and life support systems switched to backup. Batteries. The second and third rounds hit the 5th and 7th destroyers with identical precision. Both ships lost propulsion immediately, their engines reduced to twisted wreckage. The vessels began tumbling through space, unable to control their momentum. All 3 hits had been perfect. All 3 destroyers were disabled but intact. Not a single crew member had been killed. The human gunner had deliberately aimed for areas where casualties would be minimal. It had taken less than 6 seconds from the order to fire until the last destroyer was crippled. Commander, Young Mai coordinated the Indomitable's defensive systems from her station. Point defense arrays tracked incoming fire with incredible precision, targeting the most dangerous weapons first. Automated systems calculated threat priorities thousands of times per second, adjusting shield configuration to optimize protection. 98% interception rate, Young MI reported. The remaining 2% is being absorbed by our armor. No damage to primary systems, hull integrity at 100%. The 2% of enemy fire that made it through the shields struck the Indomitable's outer armor plating. This armor was made from materials that should not exist according to Velkari science. Compressed alloys forged under pressures found only in the cores of dying stars. The plasma that reached it splashed across the surface and dissipated harmlessly, leaving only scorch marks. Helm Officer Minseo executed evasive maneuvers that seemed impossible for a ship the Indomitable's size. The human vessel rolled, pitched, and accelerated with the agility of a fighter craft. Velkari weapons fire that should have found its target passed through empty space instead, the massive warship somehow anticipating each attack before it arrived. "How are they moving like that?" Thexler shouted on the Velkari flagship. "A ship that size should not be able to maneuver so quickly." Krenva checked her sensors again and again, hoping the readings were wrong. They were not. "Their inertial dampening technology is generations beyond ours, Commander. They are compensating for forces that would tear our ships apart." Admiral Krentok watched 3 of his destroyers tumble helplessly through space, disabled by 3 perfect shots. His face had lost its arrogant confidence. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. But pride and decades of military training pushed him forward. "All remaining ships close to boarding range. We will swarm them with superior numbers, launch all fighter craft, prepare boarding parties." The Velkari battle cruisers and remaining destroyers accelerated toward the human warship, attempting to close the distance. If they could not defeat the humans at range, they would try to overwhelm them with close combat and boarding actions. It was a desperate tactic, but Admiral Krentok could see no other option. Captain Daehyun observed the alien fleet's new tactics on his displays. The enemy ships were spreading out, trying to surround the Indomitable from multiple angles. Small fighter craft were launching from carrier bays, hundreds of them swarming like insects. "They are attempting a boarding action," Commander Youngmi noted. "Shall I prepare counterboarding teams?" "That will not be necessary," Daehyun replied calmly. "Show them what the Indomitable was truly designed for. Release the drones." Hidden bays along the human warship's hull opened smoothly. From these concealed launch ports, 300 autonomous combat drones emerged into space. Each drone was roughly the size of a Velkari fighter craft, but operated with precision that no organic pilot could match. They were controlled by advanced artificial intelligence systems that could process tactical data and coordinate attacks in microseconds. The drones spread out in perfect formation, creating a defensive sphere around the Indomitable. When the Velkari fighters entered range, the drones opened fire with their own scaled-down railguns and particle beams. The alien fighters stood no chance. Velkari pilots tried to fight back, but their reactions were too slow compared to the AI-controlled drones. Fighter craft exploded by the dozens, their pilots ejecting in escape pods before their ships were destroyed. The drones deliberately allowed the escape pods to survive, another demonstration of precisely controlled force. Within 5 minutes, the entire Velkari fighter wing had been eliminated. Not a single drone had been lost. Admiral Krentok watched his fleet falling apart around him. 7 of his 10 ships were now disabled or heavily damaged. Fighter wings were destroyed. Boarding parties would never reach their target. And the human warship continued to float in space, its shields barely scratched, its weapons still barely used. "Admiral, we must retreat," Thexlar pleaded. "We cannot win this battle. They are too advanced." For a long moment, Admiral Krentok said nothing. He stared at the tactical displays showing his broken fleet. Pride warred with survival instinct in his mind. Finally, survival won. "All ships cease fire," he ordered quietly. "Emergency withdrawal. Fall back to—" He never finished the command. Captain Daehyun transmitted a message that reached every ship in the Velkari fleet simultaneously. "You have encountered humanity. Consider this a demonstration of our capabilities. We have disabled your ships without killing your crews. This is the only mercy you will receive. Leave our space immediately and spread word of what happened here. Tell your leaders that humanity does not seek conflict, but we will not hesitate to defend ourselves. Tell them that any future aggression will be met with total destruction. We have shown restraint today. The next fleet that challenges us will not be shown the same consideration." The Velkari fleet began its retreat, damaged ships limping away, supported by those still capable of flight. The 30 minutes crawled by with agonizing slowness. On the bridge of the Velkari flagship, Fleet Commander Thexlar convened an emergency meeting with his ship captains through holographic communication. 7 faces appeared around him, representing the different species of the coalition. All of them looked worried. "This is unprecedented," said Captain Vokhtar of the second battlecruiser. His reptilian features were tense with concern. "A single vessel threatening an entire fleet? This is either incredible arrogance or they possess weapons we cannot comprehend." "Perhaps it is a bluff," suggested Captain Yinra from the fourth destroyer. "They show us weapons ports and hope we flee without a fight. It is a common psychological tactic." Thexlar wanted to believe that. He desperately wanted to believe this was simply intimidation. But Tactical Officer Krenva had analyzed the human ship's power output, and the numbers made no sense. The vessel was generating enough energy to power a small city, yet it was doing so with engines smaller than what coalition ships used. That meant their power technology was far more advanced than anything the Velkari possessed. "Their weapons are powered but not actively targeting us," Krenva reported. "It is a show of confidence. They are saying they can destroy us whenever they choose, so there is no need to lock weapons yet." That thought sent cold fear through Thexler's body. "We must contact Central Command. They need to know about this immediately." While the Velkari debated their next move, Captain Dai-hyun reviewed intelligence files on his own bridge. The information Earth had gathered about the Velkari coalition was extensive. For 5 years, human reconnaissance ships had observed the aliens from a distance, studying their technology, their tactics, their expansion patterns. Commander Young Mi stood beside the captain's chair, reading through the same files on her personal display. She was Dae-hyun's second-in-command, a woman known for her strategic thinking and calm demeanor even in crisis situations. "The Velkari coalition has been expanding aggressively for the past decade," Young Mi said quietly. "They have annexed 14 star systems from weaker species. Their usual tactic is intimidation first, then overwhelming force if the target does not surrender." "Then they chose the wrong species to intimidate," Dae-hyun replied. "Humanity does not surrender. Not anymore, not after everything we survived on Earth." Young Mi nodded, but her expression remained cautious. "Captain, we are alone out here. The nearest human battle group is 3 days away at maximum speed. If this turns into a fight, we will have no support." "We do not need support, Commander. The Indomitable was designed for exactly this situation." Dae-hyun gestured at the main screen showing the Velkari fleet. 7 ships against 1. In their military doctrine, those are overwhelming odds. But they have never fought humans before. They do not understand what our ships can do. Chief Engineer Tae-sung approached from the engineering station. He was an older man with gray hair and steady hands, someone who had worked on warship engines for 30 years. "All systems are at optimal capacity, Captain. Shields are ready. Weapons are ready. The ship is ready. We can maintain full combat status for 72 hours if needed." "Excellent work, Chief." Dae-hyun checked the countdown timer. 20 minutes had passed. The Velkari had 10 minutes left to decide whether to leave or stay. On the Velkari flagship, the decision was being made for them. A message arrived from Central Command, transmitted across the vast distances of space through quantum communication arrays. The response was not what Thexlar had hoped for. "Central Command orders us to hold position," he announced to his officers. "They are sending reinforcements. 3 additional battlecruisers will arrive in 4 hours. Until then, we are to maintain our current position and monitor the human vessel." "Commander, what if the humans attack before reinforcements arrive?" Krenva asked nervously. "They will not," Thexlar said with more confidence than he felt. "If they wanted to attack, they would have done so already. They are waiting to see what we do." But Central Command had also sent another order, one that Thexlar did not share with his crew. He was authorized to test the human vessel's defenses, not with a full attack but with a single shot. A warning to show that the Velkari fleet would not be intimidated. Thexlar struggled with the decision. Part of him knew this was foolish, but military pride and decades of training pushed him forward. The coalition had never backed down from anyone. To flee from a single ship would be humiliating. Tactical, prepare a single plasma torpedo, fire it past the human vessel, not at it. Close enough to be noticed, far enough to not be considered an attack. Show them we have weapons too. Krenva hesitated for only a moment before carrying out the order. On the main screen, a bright blue sphere of superheated plasma launched from the flagship's primary weapon port. It streaked through space at nearly the speed of light, heading toward a point several hundred kilometers from the human warship. It was meant as a warning, a demonstration of power. It never reached its destination. The Indomitable's point defense systems activated automatically the moment the plasma torpedo was fired. Sensors detected the launch, calculated its trajectory, and responded in microseconds. A beam of directed energy shot out from one of the human ship's smaller weapon ports. The beam was invisible except where it struck the plasma torpedo. The torpedo exploded in a brilliant flash of light, vaporized so quickly that Valkyrie sensors could barely track what had happened. The energy beam had been active for exactly 0.3 of a second. On the Indomitable's bridge, Weapons Officer Sang-hoon reported the engagement with professional calm. Point defense system engaged automatically, Captain. Incoming projectile destroyed at 200 kilometers. Threat neutralized. I saw, Daehyun said quietly. His expression had not changed, but his voice carried an edge now. Jiwoo, transmit a message to the Valkyrie fleet. Communications Officer Jiwoo's fingers moved quickly across her console. She composed the message and sent it on all frequencies that the aliens were using. The translation software converted her words into the Valkyrie language, though it struggled slightly with human linguistic patterns. The meaning, however, was crystal clear. Message sent, Captain. On the Valkyrie flagship, the message appeared on every screen and echoed through every speaker. The words were simple and direct, leaving no room for misinterpretation. The next projectile will be interpreted as an act of war. We will respond with overwhelming force. Stand down immediately. Silence filled the Valkyrie bridge. Every officer stared at the screens in shock. The humans had destroyed their fastest weapon with casual ease, as if swatting an insect. The defensive beam had fired so quickly that most sensors had missed it entirely. Only the most advanced tactical systems had captured the engagement. Analysis, Thexlar demanded, his voice shaking slightly. Krenva pulled up the data, her face pale. Commander, the energy beam was a directed particle weapon operating at power levels we have never seen before. Our plasma torpedo was traveling at 0.98 light speed. The human weapon tracked it, targeted it, and destroyed it in less time than it takes me to speak this sentence. If they can do that to our fastest weapon, then our shields will offer no protection at all. Several of the ship captains began requesting permission to withdraw. Their voices came through the holographic communication system, overlapping in their urgency. Thexlar raised one clawed hand for silence. We hold position, he said firmly. Reinforcements are coming. Central Command has ordered us to maintain our position, and that is what we will do. But no one fires another weapon. We wait. The Valkyrie fleet hung in space, weapons powered but unused. Before them, the human warship waited with infinite patience. The standoff had begun and neither side knew how it would end. But deep in his heart, Thexlar suspected that the Valkyrie had made a terrible mistake. 4 hours passed in tense silence. The Valkyrie fleet maintained its position, weapons powered but inactive. The human warship floated before them like a dark monument, completely still except for the gentle rotation of its sensor arrays. Then space itself seemed to tear open. 3 massive Valkyrie battlecruisers emerged from quantum slip space, their arrival announced by bursts of exotic radiation and gravitational distortions. The reinforcements had arrived, doubling the coalition fleet's strength. Now 10 warships faced the single human vessel. Admiral Krentok commanded the lead battlecruiser. He was old by Valkyrie standards, his scales darkened with age and scarred from decades of combat. He had fought in 17 major battles and never lost a single engagement. His reputation was legendary throughout the coalition military. Thexlar felt relief as the Admiral's holographic image appeared on the bridge. Surely someone with Krentok's experience would know how to handle this situation, but that relief turned to concern when he saw the Admiral's expression. Krentok looked annoyed, not cautious. Fleet Commander Thexlar, your report made this situation sound dire, the Admiral said with barely concealed contempt. I see a single vessel surrounded by 10 of our warships. Where exactly is the problem? Admiral, you do not understand. That ship destroyed our plasma torpedo with ease. Their defensive systems are far beyond anything we have encountered. Their weapons technology is— I have read your report, Krentok interrupted. It sounds like you lost your nerve after firing one test shot. The Central Command sent me here to resolve this situation quickly. We have more important matters to attend to than a standoff with an unknown vessel. Thexlar wanted to argue, but military hierarchy prevented him from contradicting a superior officer. He could only watch as Admiral Krentok took command of the situation. On the Indomitable's bridge, sensors detected the arrival of the new Valkyrie ships immediately. Tactical Officer Hyun-woo updated his threat assessment displays, analyzing each new vessel's capabilities. He was a young officer but brilliant at tactical analysis, able to process complex battle scenarios in seconds. Captain, 3 additional enemy ships have arrived. Our fleet strength disadvantage has increased to 10-1. Hyun-woo spoke calmly, simply stating facts without emotion. Weapon signatures suggest these are capital ships heavier than the original 7 vessels. Captain Dae-hyun studied the tactical display. 10 ships? Most military doctrines would consider those impossible odds. But human warships were not designed for fair fights. They were designed to win against any opposition, regardless of numbers. "Should we contact Earth Command and request support?" asked Commander Young-mi. It was a reasonable suggestion. Protocol stated that when facing superior numbers, a captain should call for reinforcements. "No," Dae-hyun said quietly. "We are the support, Commander. The Indomitable was built for exactly this scenario. Calling for help would suggest we cannot handle the situation ourselves. That is not a message we want to send to these aliens." Young-mi nodded, understanding the captain's reasoning. This was not just about winning a potential battle. This was about establishing humanity's reputation in the galaxy. If they showed weakness now, every species in space would think humans could be bullied or intimidated. Medical Officer Soo-jin prepared her casualties bays, hoping they would remain empty. She was efficient and professional, checking medical supplies and ensuring all emergency equipment was ready. Soo-jin had served on 3 different warships, but the Indomitable was the most advanced vessel she had ever worked on. She trusted the ship and its crew, but battles were unpredictable. People could die, and she needed to be ready to save as many as possible. The alien fleet began moving into new formations, the fresh battle cruisers taking up positions that would allow overlapping fields of fire. It was a standard tactical maneuver, designed to maximize offensive capability while minimizing the risk to individual ships. Admiral Krentok opened a communication channel. His voice came through the Indomitable's speakers, translated by the same software that handled all alien communications. The Admiral's tone was demanding and arrogant. "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Krentok of the Valkyrie Coalition Defense Fleet. You are surrounded and outgunned. I am authorized to offer you one opportunity to surrender peacefully. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded for inspection. You have 1 hour to comply. If you refuse, we will destroy your ship. This is your only warning." On the Valkyrie flagship, Thexlar listened to the ultimatum with growing dread. This was a mistake. He could feel it in his bones. But he was no longer in command. He could only watch and hope the humans would see reason and withdraw. In the Indomitable's bridge, silence followed the Admiral's message. Several officers looked at their captain, waiting for his response. Captain Dae-hyun remained perfectly still for a long moment, then stood from his chair. He walked to the main viewport and stared out at the alien fleet. "Ji-woo, send a response. 1 word only. Tell them no." The communications officer transmitted the message immediately. A single word in the Valkyrie language appeared on every screen in the alien fleet. "No." Admiral Krentok's face darkened with anger. "They dare refuse? They have 1 ship against 10 and they refuse to surrender? Admiral, perhaps we should reconsider," Thexlar suggested carefully. "Their defensive technology is extremely advanced. An attack might result in—" "Silence," Krentok snapped. "I will not be lectured about tactics by an officer who allowed himself to be intimidated by a single ship. We gave them a chance to surrender. They refused. Now they will face the consequences." The Admiral opened fleet-wide communications. "All ships, this is Admiral Krentok. Battle stations. Power all weapons to full capacity. Prepare for coordinated assault on my command. We will show these humans the price of defying the Valkyrie Coalition." On the human warship, alarms began to chime softly. The Valkyrie ships were powering up their weapons, targeting systems going active. The energy signatures were unmistakable. They were preparing to attack. Captain Dae-hyun returned to his command chair and sat down slowly. He looked around his bridge, seeing the faces of his crew. These were good people, trained professionals who had prepared for this moment their entire careers. Some of them were nervous, but none showed fear. They trusted their ship, their captain, and each other. "All hands, this is the captain," Dae-hyun announced over the ship-wide communication system. "General quarters. Battle stations. This is not a drill. All crew to combat positions. Medical teams stand by for casualties. Engineering, I need maximum power to all systems. Weapons, prepare all batteries for engagement. Shields to full strength. Weapons Officer Sang-hoon's hands moved across his controls with practiced precision. Targeting solutions appeared on his displays, one for each Valkyrie ship. The Indomitable's fire control systems could track and engage all 10 enemy vessels simultaneously. Targeting solutions locked, Captain. Ready to fire on your command. Hold fire until they commit, Daehyun ordered. Let them fire first. I want there to be no doubt about who started this fight. The hour that Admiral Krentok had given them ticked away. 60 minutes became 30, then 15, then 5. The Valkyrie fleet moved into attack positions, weapons charged and ready. On both sides, crews waited with tense anticipation. The moment of truth was approaching. The countdown reached 0. Human vessel, you have refused our ultimatum. Admiral Krentok transmitted one final time. May your death serve as a lesson to others who challenge the coalition. All ships open fire. 10 Valkyrie warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Plasma torpedoes, ion beams, particle cannons, and missile batteries all fired at once. The space between the fleets lit up with deadly energy as hundreds of weapons discharged. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. All of it was aimed at the single human warship. The battle had begun. The darkness of space stretched endlessly in all directions. Among the distant stars, a fleet of alien warships moved in perfect formation. The Valkyrie Armada consisted of 7 massive vessels, each one representing a different species from the coalition. Their hulls gleamed with polished metal that reflected the light of nearby stars. Fleet Commander Thexelar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the main display screen with his 4 eyes. His scaled skin reflected the blue glow of the control panels around him. For 3 cycles, his fleet had been patrolling this sector of space without incident. It was routine work, boring even. The disputed territories of the outer reach were usually empty, but today was different. A low chime echoed across the bridge. Science Officer Vrenko turned from her station, her antenna twitching with excitement. Commander, we have detected something unusual. There is an object ahead, approximately 4,000 kilometers from our position. Thexelar moved closer to her station. What kind of object? Unknown, sir. It is large. Very large. The sensors are having difficulty analyzing its composition. Vrenko's fingers danced across her controls. The material. I have never seen readings like this before. The density is far beyond anything in our databases. The fleet commander felt a ripple of concern move through his body. In his 20 years of military service, Vrenko had never been confused by sensor readings. She was the best science officer in the coalition fleet. If she was puzzled, there was reason for caution. Show me visual, Thexelar commanded. The main screen flickered and changed. At first there was nothing but empty space and distant stars. Then the computer enhanced the image, zooming in on a dark shape that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The object was angular, geometric, with sharp edges and flat surfaces. It looked like a massive block of metal floating silently in the void. Is it a ship? Asked Sub-Commander Prelnak from the tactical station. Unknown, Vrenko replied. It broadcasts no identification codes, no power signatures, no engine emissions. It appears to be completely inactive. Thexelar studied the image carefully. The object was at least 3 times the size of his flagship, possibly larger. Its design was unlike anything he had seen before. Most ships in the galaxy were smooth and curved, built to move efficiently through space. This thing looked like it had been carved from a single piece of impossibly dense metal. Could it be a derelict? Prelnak suggested. An ancient vessel from a dead civilization? Possible, Thexelar said slowly. But those materials. Communication Officer Pelvix transmits standard greetings on all frequencies. Let us see if anyone is home. Pelvix nodded and began broadcasting. His voice echoed through the bridge as he spoke in 47 different languages, each one a greeting used by known spacefaring species. The messages traveled through space at the speed of light, reaching the dark vessel in seconds. No response came. Minutes passed. The alien object remained silent and dark, drifting slightly as if pushed by solar winds that did not exist in the vacuum of space. Bring us closer, Thexelar ordered, but maintain defensive formations. I want weapons ready but not powered. We do not want to appear hostile to whatever this is. The Valkyrie fleet moved forward, engines burning bright blue flames in the darkness. As they approached, the size of the unknown vessel became even more apparent. It was enormous, dwarfing even the largest Coalition battlecruiser. Strange markings covered its hull, symbols that meant nothing to any language database. Inside the mysterious vessel, Captain Dae-hyun sat perfectly still in his command chair. The bridge of the Kun's Indomitable was dimmed, running on minimal power. His crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring the approaching alien fleet with professional calm. "They are transmitting greetings, Captain," said Communications Officer Ji-woo. She was young but highly trained, her fingers moving smoothly across her console. 47 different languages so far. "They seem confused by our presence." Dae-hyun allowed himself a small smile. "Let them wonder a little longer." "Weapon status? All systems ready but dark," reported Weapons Officer Sang-hoon. "We can go from 0 to full combat capability in 3 seconds. Good. Hold position. Let them get closer." The alien fleet continued its cautious approach. On the Valkyrie flagship, tension filled the bridge as the distance closed. 2,000 kilometers. 1,000. 500, Commander, Vrenko said urgently. "The material composition? This should not be possible. The density readings indicate metals that would require stellar forge temperatures to create. The energy cost to build something this large would bankrupt entire planetary systems." Thexler felt his primary heart skip a beat. Could it be a weapon? Some kind of massive bomb? "No, sir. The shape is wrong. This is definitely a ship. But who could build such a thing?" The answer came moments later. Without warning, the dark vessel came alive. Lights cascaded across its hull in waves of white and blue brilliance. Sections of the exterior that had appeared to be solid metal suddenly revealed themselves as transparent ports. Glowing with internal illumination, the ship was not dead. It had been sleeping and now it was awake. Captain Dae-hyun stood from his chair as his ship powered up around him. "Full systems online. Ji-woo, open a channel. Let us introduce ourselves properly." On the Valkyrie flagship, alarms began screaming. The unknown vessel had tripled in size on their sensors as stealth systems deactivated. Weapon ports opened along its hull like the eyes of some ancient predator opening after a long sleep. There were hundreds of them, perhaps thousands. "Defensive positions," Thexler shouted. "Power all weapons! Shields to maximum." The Valkyrie fleet scattered, breaking formation to establish firing solutions. But before anyone could act, a message came through on all channels. The voice was calm, measured, and spoke in perfectly translated Valkyrie language. "Attention, Coalition vessels. This space is claimed by the Korean United Nations and humanity. You are ordered to reverse course and leave this sector immediately. You have 30 minutes to comply. This is your only warning." Thexler stared at the main screen in shock. The massive vessel hung in space before his fleet. Weapons trained on every Coalition ship with impossible precision. The human warship, if that was what it truly was, had gone from appearing dead to full combat readiness in seconds. For the first time in his long military career, Fleet Commander Thexler felt something he had never experienced while commanding a fleet of 7 warships. He felt afraid. 3 days after the battle, the Valkyrie Coalition convened an emergency session. Representatives from all 7 allied species gathered in the Grand Council chamber on their capital world. The massive hall was designed to showcase Coalition power and unity, with soaring ceilings and walls decorated with symbols of their greatest military victories. Today, those symbols felt hollow. Fleet Commander Thexler stood before the council, presenting his report on the encounter with humanity. Holographic displays showed sensor data from the battle, including recordings of the human warship's devastating effectiveness. Council members watched in silence as 3 Valkyrie destroyers were disabled in seconds, as fighter wings were systematically eliminated, as 10 Coalition ships were defeated by a single opponent. "The humans displayed technology far beyond our current capabilities," Thexler explained, his voice steady despite his personal shame at the defeat. "Their shields operated on principles we do not fully understand. Their weapons combined kinetic and energy systems in ways we have never seen. Most concerning, their artificial intelligence systems controlled hundreds of combat drones with perfect coordination." Science Officer Vrenko presented her analysis next. She had spent the past 3 days reviewing every bit of data collected during the engagement, trying to understand human technology. Her findings were disturbing. Based on power output readings and engine signatures, We believe the human vessel was operating at less than 40% of its total capacity during the entire battle, Vrenko said quietly. If this represents their standard military capability, we must assume they possess many more such vessels. An attempt at military confrontation with humanity would be catastrophic for the coalition. The council chamber erupted in heated debate. Some species representatives demanded immediate military mobilization, arguing for a preemptive strike before humanity could expand further into the galaxy. Others advocated for caution and diplomacy, pointing out that attacking would likely result in the coalition's destruction. We cannot allow a single species to intimidate the entire coalition, argued Councillor Drekvan, leader of the militant faction. If we show weakness now, every species in the galaxy will think they can challenge us. And if we attack and lose, the coalition will cease to exist, countered Councillor Yelmara, known for her diplomatic wisdom. The humans showed restraint. They disabled our ships without killing our crews. That suggests they do not want total war. Perhaps we can reach an understanding. The debate continued for hours without resolution. Eventually, the Council agreed to send a diplomatic mission to Earth. It was decided that showing peaceful intentions was less risky than military confrontation. At least for now. On Earth, Captain Dae-hyun submitted his after-action report to United Earth Command. The report was thorough and detailed, including tactical analysis of Velkari capabilities and recommendations for future encounters with alien species. Admiral Jae-sung reviewed the document with great satisfaction. "Excellent work, Captain," the Admiral said during their secured communication. "The Indomitable's performance exceeded all projections. More importantly, you established humanity's position in galactic politics perfectly. We showed strength without unnecessary cruelty. That will serve us well in the coming years." Captain Dae-hyun nodded respectfully. "The crew performed exceptionally, sir. Every officer did their duty with professionalism and skill. I would like to recommend several of them for commendations." "Already approved," Admiral Jae-sung replied with a rare smile. "You and your crew have given humanity a tremendous advantage. The aliens now know we cannot be easily defeated or intimidated. That knowledge alone may prevent future conflicts." The Admiral's prediction proved accurate. Within 2 weeks, a Velkari diplomatic vessel approached Earth, broadcasting peaceful intentions on all communication frequencies. The ship was small and unarmed, clearly designed for civilian purposes rather than military operations. It carried Ambassador Thelkor, one of the coalition's most experienced diplomats. The humans assigned Ambassador Hae-won to handle first contact negotiations. She was a Korean diplomat with 20 years of experience in complex international relations, chosen specifically for her ability to remain calm under pressure and her skill at finding compromise solutions. The initial meetings took place aboard a neutral space station, constructed quickly by human engineering teams specifically for diplomatic purposes. The first face-to-face meeting between humans and Velkari was tense. Ambassador Thelkor entered the negotiation room expecting to meet warriors and conquerors, beings who would demand submission and tribute. Instead, he found Ambassador Hae-won waiting with a simple table, comfortable chairs and refreshments suitable for both species biology. "Welcome, Ambassador Thelkor," Hae-won said calmly, gesturing to a seat. "Thank you for traveling all this way. I hope we can establish a foundation for peaceful relations between our peoples." The negotiations lasted for 3 weeks. Ambassador Hae-won's terms were clear and non-negotiable. Humanity wanted recognized borders, guaranteed by mutual treaty. They wanted non-aggression pacts with all coalition species. They wanted fair trade agreements based on equal partnership, not subordination. And they wanted absolute assurance that the coalition would never attack human interests or human allies. "You speak of allies," Ambassador Thelkor noted during one session, "but your species has only recently revealed itself to the galaxy. Who are these allies?" "We have been observing galactic civilization for years," Hae-won replied. "We have identified several species that the coalition has exploited or threatened. Those species will be offered our protection and partnership. Anyone who wishes to live free from coalition intimidation will find humanity to be a reliable friend." The message was clear. Humanity was not simply defending itself. It was establishing itself as a counterbalance to coalition expansion. Smaller, weaker species would no longer be forced to submit to Velkari demands. They would have another option. The negotiations concluded with the Treaty of Sol, named after humanity's home star system. The treaty established formal diplomatic relations, defined territorial boundaries, and created frameworks for peaceful trade and cultural exchange. Most importantly, it included a mutual defense clause. Any attack on humanity would be considered an attack on all treaty signatories and vice versa. Months passed. Humanity's sphere of influence expanded as more species signed onto the Sol Treaty. Human exploration vessels, always escorted by warships like the Indomitable, pushed into uncharted regions of space. New colonies were established on promising worlds. Trade routes opened, bringing wealth and resources back to Earth. The crew of the Indomitable received their recognition. Captain Dae-hyun was promoted to Commodore and given command of an entire battle group. Commander Young-mi was promoted to captain and given her own ship. Weapons Officer Sang-hoon became a gunnery instructor at the military academy, teaching the next generation of officers. Medical Officer Soo-jin wrote a memoir about her experiences that became required reading at medical schools across Earth. Chief Engineer Tai-sung led a team designing the next generation of human warships, incorporating lessons learned from the Valkyrie encounter. These new vessels would be even more powerful, even more capable, ensuring that humanity's technological advantage remained secure. The Valkyrie coalition adapted to the new reality. Some species within the coalition quietly opened their own diplomatic channels with humanity, seeking private agreements outside coalition authority. The unified front that had dominated the galaxy for decades began to show cracks. Other species realized they no longer had to fear coalition intimidation. The balance of power was shifting. On a remote colony world in the outer reach, a Valkyrie mother sat with her young daughter under an alien sky. The child had been learning about recent history in school and had questions about the humans. "Mama, are humans really as dangerous as my teacher says?" the little girl asked. Her mother, who had served aboard one of the destroyers disabled during the battle, looked up at the stars. "Yes, child. More dangerous than any species we have ever encountered. Their weapons can destroy our ships in seconds. Their technology is far beyond ours. They are warriors who have mastered the art of war." The child looked frightened. "Then why do we not fight them? Why do we make treaties instead?" "Because they are also wise," her mother explained gently. "They could have killed everyone in our fleet, but they chose not to. They showed us that they are strong enough to destroy us, but merciful enough to spare us. That is more terrifying than simple strength. It means they fight by choice, not necessity, and it means if you treat them with respect, they will treat you with respect in return." "What if someone does not respect them?" the child asked. Her mother's expression grew serious. "Then that someone will learn the same lesson we learned. The humans do not start fights, but they always finish them. Remember that, little one. Remember what happened to our fleet when Admiral Krentok challenged the Indomitable. Remember that humans value peace, but they are always prepared for war." The little girl nodded thoughtfully, storing away her mother's words. She would remember.